Hello everyone, Mimristo here, and welcome to the Joy of Puzzles. I'd like to extend a personal invitation for you guys to grab your preferred setting tool so you can follow along with us as we set a Sudoku from scratch. If this is your first time setting a Sudoku, I will be using fpuzzles.com. The link to that is in the description, and I guarantee that whatever you create today, finished or not, will be worth sharing. So I've removed auto moderation in the comments, so feel free to link your puzzle below so other people can check it out and we can all see how different each other's ideas are. Alright, I'm going to go through some things about F-puzzles. There's a setting mode, which you can switch between the solving mode and the setting mode here. You might need to do that at some point in order to try and solve a bit of your puzzle and then set a bit of your puzzle. The setting mode allows you to put in given digits and constraints. Let's look at some of the constraints. So today we'll be working with thermometers. So if we scroll up here, we can see that this one says thermometer, and it says that numbers on a thermometer must strictly increase as they move away from the bulb. And it says you can click to drag to draw a thermometer, shift click on a thermometer and drag to draw a branching thermometer, and click on a thermometer to remove it. So if you click on a thermometer without shift clicking, it will remove it, just noting. So I'll give it a little demonstration. We can do a little drawing of a thermometer here, and this is a 6-cell thermometer because it touches 6 different cells. If we want a 3-cell thermometer, we can do that. It's 3 cells in length. And if we want to do a branching thermometer, well, we are usually going to be branching from the bulb because that looks the prettiest, as well given digits. Given digits, if you want to switch from the thermometer to given digits, you'll just press this button right over here and then click on any cell, press on your keyboard or over in the where my face is right now. There's a little number pad you can press on those digits as well, and those will input digits into the grid. If you prefer to work on paper or another platform, I'll put alternatives in the description and you can feel free to explore those and choose what's best to suit your needs. Let's get started. Our goal is to place clues such that we can use those clues to logically deduce things. Specifically, our first goal in this project is to place a few clues to deduce logically one digit. I'm going to suggest that you guys use 2 thermometers of length 5 or less and a single given digit in the grid. If you want more constraints on what these thermometers look like and how to draw them, I would suggest that they span or touch no more than 2 boxes. So if I were to draw a thermometer like this, that would touch 3 boxes. If I were to draw a thermometer like this, that would only touch 2 boxes because the cells on the thermometer only touch 2 boxes. Now we can go against these rules if we want, if we prefer. You can pause the video or take some time to make your own design, or you can watch this one possible arrangement that I'll make, and if you have never set before and you're intimidated and you're not sure what to do, it's okay to have the starting point of the same thing that I'm putting in here. So first of all, if I have a given digit 8, then any thermometer which now has an 8 somehow forced onto it, well, that thermometer can't have the 8 in, say, this cell, because then if it did, then this would have to be 8, 9, 10, 11. These 2 cells can't be 8, but this cell could be 8. So that's not really great. Maybe we want to do something more like this, where none of these 3 cells can be 8s now, because even if I put an 8 on the largest one, then this digit has to be higher than 8, which would have to be 9. Of course, that's the only digit higher than 8, but now this digit has to be higher than 9, and there's no digit higher than 9. Alright, so we'll put in that thermometer as one of our 2 thermometers that we can use, and we'll put in this thermometer. What we can see here is that none of these cells can be 8. And because there's an 8 in this column, a given 8, none of these cells can be 8. So in this box, the 8 is restricted to these 3 cells. A corner mark means that that digit can only go in these places in this box. So this 8 and these 8s see these 2 columns, and these 2 cells can't be 8 for the same reason as these 3 cells, so therefore this cell has to be an 8. Now I'm going to switch from setting mode to solving mode so that I can put this 8 in as a little sort of grayish 8 instead of this black 8 to represent that it is a deduced digit, a logically deduced digit, not a digit which I have given the solver from the beginning of the puzzle. This being an 8 means that this has to be a 9, then this 9 sees these cells and sees these cells because 9 cannot go in here for the same reason 8 can't go in there. There's no digit greater than 9. So therefore 9 in this box has to go in one of these 3 cells. And therefore in this box, none of these cells can be 9, so then these 3 cells are the only places for 9 in box 5. You might have noticed that in this whole process, that it doesn't matter if I put the 8 here or if I put the 8 here. All the logic is exactly identical. Similarly, I could do the 8 here, and that would be the exact same thing. And yeah, I could even move the 8 over here, and that would eliminate 8s from here, of course, but that would also mean that 8s are over here, and again, we would have the same idea. So keeping in mind that there are different ways which you can configure things that do the same thing, that cause the same deductions. Now, placing an 8 in column 5, for example, might be something that some of you would be interested in doing, because that means that we could maybe use the fact that these 3 cells have an 8 and a 9 in them. Placing some thermo bulb in these cells would be quite restrictive, but that's not what we're going to do. Feel free to use that idea though. We'll place the 8 back where it was. What you need to be thinking about is, what will the solver of this eventual puzzle actually be thinking when they're looking at this grid? Will they be pencil marking this entire thermo? Probably not. We have not restricted this any more than it was restricted to begin with. Now, if you've gotten here and you still don't have your, what some people might call a break-in, or a single logical deduction at the beginning of your puzzle, just be aware that it's okay to draw something and see what happens. And if you can't figure out anything from that drawing, try and think about what you were looking for and what you could maybe do with that. Maybe you can force what you're looking to actually do. And don't worry about making something impressive. Spottable and approachable are admirable qualities in a puzzle. So don't worry about this being some masterpiece puzzle. We're just trying to have fun here. And it's fun to set. The exact same idea we've talked about with this 8, where it can be placed anywhere, applies identically with clues, like thermometers. You could move around this thermometer to have the same effect, have the same implications. Just having these 3 cells not be 8 or 9 would have the same effect, but we could put these 2 cells anywhere we want. Now, before moving on to our next clues, of course you want to think about your deduction very carefully and what pencil marks or even ideas that this deduction might prompt the solver to have. That is, where might the solver of this eventual puzzle look after they've gotten the deduction, after they've gotten the digits? And that is exactly the place where we will add our next clue, so that where they will look is exactly where they should look. Place another thermo in the grid that is no more than 5 cells in length, which allows you to use the knowledge that you've gained from your first deduction, something that wouldn't be available without this knowledge. In isolation, it is not helpful. This might be a bit trickier if the first deduction that you had is somewhat less constrained. So it's okay, again, to fiddle with what you've done, to change around the configurations of your thermometers, to change around the configuration of your given digit. And as we've seen with this 8, you can actually change the position of things even when they don't change the logic inherent in your deduction. Pause the video and come back if you've found an example, or if you want an example of what's going on. I'm going to provide one right now. I'm going to take a thermometer and I'm going to place it in the grid such that these 2 cells are no longer 9. Because I have these 9 pencil marks in here, which have been deduced from these thermometers that I placed in the grid before. And that's exactly what I want to do. I want to place 8 and 9 in this row, such that there is some tip over here, or maybe in here, that is now restricted and cannot be 8 or 9. If we're restricting the tip of a thermo, then every other digit along it in all the cells until the bulb will be restricted by that same amount. I'm going to put something in like this, which of course will place this 9, because 9 can't go in here because there's nothing bigger than 9. Now this 8 and 9 see this cell, which means it has to be maximum of 7, which of course means that these are maximums of 6 and 5. And what I'm really looking for is to restrict 7 in this column, because now these two can't be 7, so this can be a 7 and this can be a 7. There's only 2 places for 7 now in column 6. So I'm thinking maybe I can restrict this one so that it's not a 7. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to reconfigure this thermometer. So I'm going to take this thermometer and I want to put the tip of it into this cell so that it sees the 8 and the 9. Now I can't do this without spanning 3 boxes. So it's okay to reconfigure things and ignore instructions. It's okay to go against what you thought you needed to do before. So we're going to do this, which will mean that this cell can be a maximum of 7, which means that of course these 3 cells cannot be 7. They have maximums of 5, 4, and 3. So in this column now, 7 can only go in this cell. So now the other question that we might want to ask is, where does 6 go in this column? 6 can only be placed here. And this 6, of course, on this thermo is its maximum. So every digit above it has to be maximized. This cell cannot be 8 or 9, but needs to be greater than 6. So it can only be 7. So now this cell is no longer maximum 7, it's maximum 6. You can propagate this through, and in fact, we only have 2 possibilities for each of these. So we can central mark them a little bit cleaner and say this cell can only be a 1 or a 2, because if it was a 3 or higher, then this cell would be a 7, 8, or 9, and it can't be. This cell now is the only place that 5 can go in the column. What to do next? Well, next, I think at some point in your puzzle, it's nice to have something inconspicuous. Something that doesn't seem like it would be very much help, but once you have some things rolling and you have some digits in the grid, this inconspicuous clue is actually doing a lot more work and pushing the solve forward a lot more than you'd ever expect it to. Take some time and find a thermo which is no more than length of 3 and try to see if you can find one that does a lot more work because of what you've put in the grid now than it might look like it had before. For example, at the beginning of the puzzle, putting a 2-cell thermo anywhere would have 8 options in both cells. But in our case, if I put a 2-cell thermo here, that's actually very restricted now, because this cell here sees all the high digits 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So it can be a maximum of 4, which means this can be a maximum of 3, but that makes this a 1, 2, 3 triple, placing a 4 here, 5 here, 6 here. And that does a lot more work than you would even expect it to do. So it's a bit inconspicuous. It's a little 2-cell thermo. It doesn't seem like it's going to do much. Maybe disambiguate the puzzle, but it ends up doing a lot more than you'd expect. Now at this point, it's possible that the solver of your puzzle might come into the deductions that you've put into place in a different order than you intended them. But that's okay. We're not trying to set a masterpiece. We're not Picasso. We're having fun setting a puzzle. Setting a puzzle is a lot like solving a puzzle which doesn't exist. As long as you're having fun finding the deductions, finding the logic, and thinking about where might be the next place to add a clue, that is reward in itself, and you don't have to worry too much. For now, and for this particular exercise, just let yourself relax, set a puzzle. It's fun, it really is. But what's not fun is when your puzzle is broken. And at this point, you should have a solid base for a thermo, or it's broken. Now to check if it's broken or not, if you go into the setting mode and you press this little button right here, these little arrows, then that will bring up this menu over here, which has solution path, which will try to solve as much as it can. This step function, which will step forward the logical solver. And there's these two buttons, which I recommend you use almost exclusively with the base version of FPuzzles, because the other ones can be a bit slow and maybe will crash your browser. So one thing you might want to do before you press anything over there is go into export and say open with link, and that will just open another tab in your browser with the puzzle there. Now you can't undo from what you've done here, which is the only downside, but opening a new tab will save your progress. So if I had to reload at this point, then it would revert back to what I had in the grid before. And the reason why I say to do that is because sometimes these options will crash without add-ons. And you can get add-ons through Rangsk Solver, which I will link in the description, but really what we want is to check whether our puzzle is broken or not. So this button right here, check, will check whether our puzzle is broken or not, and it will pop up with a little pop-up down here saying it has multiple, one, or no solutions. Now you might have to tell the browser that it's okay for the page to be unresponsive. You just want to wait for the result. And with the Rangsk solver, you don't have to wait. So our puzzle has multiple solutions at this point, as expected, and your puzzle might be broken. If it is broken, don't worry. You don't have to restart. Just think about what might be breaking it. Try to remove some things that you've done just now and check again, because I'm guessing that something that you just did probably broke it. And if not, it's okay to restart. Again, we're trying to have fun here. It's okay if it didn't finish. Well, maybe you can submit it as a no solutions puzzle. I don't know. Even if you get to that point and you're like, I don't want to bother with it, it broke, I'm just going to move on with my life. Maybe I'll set a different Sudoku another day. That's fine. Feel free to link this broken puzzle in the comments. I'd love to take a look at it anyway. So at this point, you don't really need a guide anymore. I would encourage you to keep working with this puzzle. If you are sort of, it's not really my thing, feel free to send it in the comments anyway. I'll take a look at an unfinished puzzle just as much as a finished puzzle, just to see what your break-in was, what your ideas were. But if you really want to finish this, then feel free to do so and link it below. I'd love to take a look at all of them. However, for you who are enjoying the challenge of me telling you what to put in the grid, let's do a very specific example. Let's try to put a length 5 thermo in box 9, a specific box with a specific length, and any given digit in box 3 that interacts with this box 9 thermo to give more than one logically deducible digit. Which is a pretty specific example, but it happens to work great in my puzzle. So if I put a 7 right here, then 7 in this box is pretty restricted. It's going to be restricted to just 2 cells here. And then if I add a thermo, which is 5 cells, and sees this 7, but also sees the 8, 9 on its tip, then we can't have the 7 in the middle of the thermo with the tip not being able to be 8 or 9. So that can't be a 7, so we can get a 7. But that's not the only deducible digit from this thermo and given digit, because this cell right here sees 6, 7, 8, and 9. But it's a 5-length thermo, so it has to be 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. This cell now sees 4, 1, and 2, so it's a 3, placing 2, 1, 3, 4. And that is my example of a 5-length thermo in box 5, which places multiple digits. Yes, I know I'm cheating because I prescribed it to fit my puzzle. You can also get a 6 here, because this cell sees 8 and 9, and in the box we need 8, 9, and 6. I will finish this puzzle, but I have already, of course, finished this puzzle on my own. I'm sure you've realized that by now, that I already had these clues in and the idea ready before even really looking at this. I will finish off the puzzle talking about why I placed each of the clues that I placed, and then we will end the video and you can comment below with your puzzles. I again would love to try them. Before we think about any more clues, let's think about what we have in the grid. Well, we have these 8 9s here, so we can pencil mark 8 and 9 up here. We can pencil mark 3s and 7s down here because of these 3s and 7s. 1s and 2s are quite interesting because they can't go in here, so 1 and 2 have to go in here, but they also have to go in here, which I immediately sort of noticed is interesting. The 3 pushes the 3 over here. The only other digit we need in here other than 3, 1, and 2 is 7. So the question is, could the 7 go with the 3? Well, the 7 can't go with the 3, because if the 7 went with the 3, then the 1 would go with the 2, and there would be no 1, 2 down here, and both 1 and 2 would have to go into this cell, which is not going to work. So the 7 goes over here. So the 7 in this box can't be in any of those cells. We could place this 7 in any of these 3 cells, really, because it just wanted to eliminate 7s from here. But this 7 is fine. I know I said you could move these all around, but I just kept them where they were because I'm lazy sometimes. And I really wanted to put some thermal bulb in here so that we could just get a 9 earlier on. Probably with a tip in row 1 because of the 7. We could force a 7 and an 8 to look at the tip, 7, 8, and 9. And this digit can't be 1, 2, 3, or 4, so it would have to be 5 or 6. But if it saw 7, 8, and 9 in the row, of course it would have to be a 6 and a 5. But we don't have 8 here yet, so we don't actually know that that's true. Obviously this can't be 9, so this has to be a 9. This can be 5 or 6. So I guess this is 8, 5, or 6, and this is a triple in a weird way. This cell is kind of weird. This cell sees 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So it can either be 1, 2, or 8, 9. And if it is a thermo bulb that leads to, say, a 7, then it can't be 8 or 9. So it has to be 1 or 2, which was interesting to me because I was thinking maybe we could put a thermo here, because this cell over here can be 1, 2, or 7. This obviously can't be a 1 because this can't be 0, but this one can't be 2 either, because if this was a 2, this would be a 1, which would place 1 here, and that would eliminate both options from here. I suppose even if you made this thermo in that way, that would have the same effect, but I just thought of it this way because I thought that was a little bit cheekier. I ended up extending this thermo even farther to get into this box, which places 8 and 9, which places a 9 here, which is why I went into this box because I thought that was cute. We know this has to be a 1, 2 because it will be the exact same one as that. We know that 4 in this row can only be in these 2 cells. In fact, these 3 cells are 4, 5, and 6, and this cell would be equal to that cell. Oh, I guess these 2 6s plus the 6 down here. The 7 is in one of these 3 cells and it can't be here, so it's in one of these 2 cells. If we could just make this a 6, then we could get this as a 6 and get a 7, 8 pair. Oh, we can get that as a 6 because it sees an 8 now. So this thermo going to here, of course, places an 8 here, which places a 6 up here. That's nice. Of course, this 6 removes 6 from there, placing a 6 here and giving us a 7, 8 pair over there. That forces 8 down here because of these 8s, which means that 8's align in here, meaning there's an 8 in one of these 2 cells. Though 4 in this box is in one of these 2 cells. In this row, we need 2, 5, 3, and 4. That can't be 3 or 4, which creates a 1, 2, 5 triple, which means these cells have to be 9, 8, and 6. That one can't be a 6, which means this is a 6, 8 pair, forcing this to be a 9. Oh, neither of these can be 5, so that actually is a 2, which forces this to be a 1 and this to be a 5. Gets rid of 5s from there, places a 4 and a 5 in here, resolved by this 5. Of course, these can't be 5s, so that has to be a 5. Now, we should be thinking about another clue, perhaps. So, for example, one of the clues that I have in my finished grid is this one, which I think I originally put in because this can't be a 3 because that would eliminate all of those options, 3, 2, 1. This is quite limited. It can only be 1, 2 because the 2 sees this cell, 3, 4. So that gives a 3, 4, 5 triple. So then in these cells we need 1s, 2s, 9s, and 8s. So those obviously aren't 8s, those aren't 9s, those aren't 2s. Oh, we need one more digit. We need 7s in there as well. So don't be afraid to add in some given digit that resolves a ton of things. For example, adding a 4 here will resolve a ton of things I can see. This is a 3, this is a 5, this is a 6, that's a 4, that's a 6. In this column, where does the 8 go? This 8 rules out that spot, so that has to be an 8. Where's the 7 go? Well, that has to be a 7. This can't be a 3, so that's a 1, 2. Because of this 3, of course. That has to be a 4. Those are not 3s. That's not a 3, that's not a 3. This is now a 5 because of this 4 taking its place. So 1, 2, 3 triple, removing 1 and 2 from here, giving us a 7, 9 pair. Removing 7 from over here, placing a 7 there, which we already knew from the 8, but I just didn't write. And we somehow need to disambiguate everything. And apparently, what I have decided with disambiguate everything is a little thermo that it goes right there. Did disambiguate everything? Let's go back for a second and think about how we can find that. So how can we find something that will disambiguate all of these patterns? Well, we can see that what do we want to do here? Well, we want to do something that will eliminate options for the high digits and the low digits and all these things. So we can think about a box which contains both highs and lows and how we can interact those to get multiple high-low things. I tend to group things into highs or lows, odds or evens when I'm thinking about a final clue or a disambiguation. So looking at this box, we can think about 7s, 8s, 9s, 1s, and 2s. And how do the 1s and the 8s interact? Well, this is a 1, 8. So we want to force this. We want to force a 1 in one of these two cells so that this is related to that. This is related to that in that this is either 1 or 8. It isn't 1 to 8, for example. So we want to force one of these two cells to be a 1. So that led me to, oh, well, if I can force this to be a 2, then this will be a 1, and that will be an 8. And that will resolve the highs and the lows at the same time. That's sort of the thinking that goes into most of my resolution thought process. So adding just a simple thermo here to give us a 2 here. This thermo will solve it, and if you want to find a solution, or if you only have one solution and you want to find the solution, if you say check and it says as a unique solution, then you can just do solve, and then it will fill in the rest of the grid in a valid form. If you press solve and it doesn't have a unique solution, it will give you one of the solutions. So then we can clear, and we can see that this is the clues that we've put into the grid. We can export into a new link so that we save all of our progress, and we can solve it from the beginning, which I will do right now. And that flows pretty well. I think we did use quite a bit of the knowledge that we had from setting the puzzle, of course, to solve it, but I tried to keep in mind what the solver might be thinking about while they are going through this and how it might appear to them. And I think it appears relatively well. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you set your own puzzle and comment below with the link to that so I can check it out and others can check out what you've done. I look forward to trying a few more of these joy of puzzles. Have a good holiday and rest of your day.